Hello out there. This is Pamela Fagan Hutchins coming to you from BoucherCon 2019, the 50th anniversary for Wine Women in Writing. And for those of you that regularly tune into the video cast or the podcast, you already know this, but hang in there while I explain that this is a show where I like to talk with other authors about their characters, primarily their books. I'm really fascinated by what makes a character spring to life, what makes their complexity, their authenticity, and that's what we're going to be doing today. So hold that thought while I send you out real quick to the website, PamelaFaganHutchins.com. The page is Wine Women in Writing. Go out there and never take a chance that you're going to miss an episode. You can subscribe to the RSS feed to come straight to your favorite device, totally free. This is just all about, authors helping other authors and helping readers discover new books and new people to follow. So I don't charge you for it. But if you love it and you want to help support women in the arts and you want to see a show like this continue, you're welcome to click the link to go out and sponsor. It doesn't hurt my feelings, but totally optional. So let's get to the good stuff today, and that is that last night I had the pleasure of being introduced by mutual friends to a writer that I am so excited to get to know more about and to read myself, and that's Christine Carbo. So
Hi.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Last night, one of the women that had already been on the show kind of decided, after she'd had a few drinks, to be my stringer, to basically go around and start inviting people to the show. And I think people were a little bit gobsmacked to be approached in a bar when everyone is really a couple of drinks into the evening, yeah. And so it's been a lot of fun for me to see which of them were then brave enough to come see what they'd signed up for. So Christine is one of those brave people.
Brave soul, yeah.
Exactly. So a couple of things that I found fascinating about Christine, and we're going to talk about without my big honking rings because I'm hitting the table with them, is that she is practically my neighbor since I live in northern Wyoming, and she lives in northern, basically, Montana. Northwest, which is a hellacious number of hours apart, but is practically next door.
Yeah.
So I love that.
In terms of, Montana and Wyoming distances.
They're that far from everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
they're 10 times that far from everywhere. And so you live near Glacier.
I do, yeah. I live near Glacier National Park and in a little town called Whitefish, Montana, which is a great little ski town. A lot of people know about it but for that reason. And Great Lakes, and it's just a beautiful area. And Glacier is a place that I absolutely adore and love. I've hiked thousands of miles in that park and spent a lot of time on that landscape. And so when I decided that I was going to write some crime fiction, for a while I was like, where am I going to set crime fiction? Like, I don't live in a city. I don't live, in like some really interesting English countryside kind of, atmospheric Dublin or, crime-ridden city that's super fun and exciting and sexy and all that stuff. So I thought, does anyone really want to read about like where I live? And then the light bulb kind of went off, like, oh my gosh, I live right next to Glacier National Park, which has millions of visitors every year. It's really kind of a haunting, stunning place as well. It's not just the beauty of it. It's also quite desolate in places and it's very atmospheric and very haunting. So I found it the perfect place to set the kind of crime fiction I write, which is, novels of suspense, a little bit of procedure in there, procedural kind of stuff, but also very character-driven stuff. Yeah. So there's a lot of introspection as well, and I find that the landscape suits that as well as the action.
I think when you put someone in the midst of nature, desolation, and danger from that,
happens naturally.
It happens naturally. They have to look inward, right? And so I think it gives you a wonderful chance to create great characters, which is why I'm so excited to go read these books. These are on the short list of what I'm going to go read when I get back from the conference. So you picked Glacier. And so at that point, did you already have a story in mind, or where do you get the actual plots that you incorporate into the stories?
Getting ideas is, I think it's just one of those nebulous things for authors where sometimes it might come from a magazine article, something interesting that you've read that stuck with you, or a real incident, or maybe a poem you've read or even a song you've heard. There's a line.
Yeah.
Or it's just all, it can be all over the place. And some people I find are just like these idea bins, like
James Patterson.
I could do this.
Yeah.
I could do that. And then the ideas are flashing right and left in their brains. And I'm not that person. It's actually quite painful for me to come up with an idea. It's like a long process where I really need to find the right idea, the one that I can spend a whole year of my life with writing and be invested in. And so I want to find the right idea. And so often I look for things that have stuck with me, like it might be an article that I've read that just kind of 3 years later, I still remember that article I read about that guy or that woman or that did this or that situation. Or maybe it really tugged on my heartstrings. Like my latest book, it's called A Sharp Solitude. There was and this happens in Montana, happens in Wyoming, but there's a lot of accidental shootings where a little kid gets their parents' guns that aren't locked up or whatever, and there's an accidental shooting. Well, I had read this article about a child in Florida who had done that and how it affected their life. And so when I wrote A Sharp Solitude, I had taken, one of my main characters is a person who had accidentally shot his best friend when he's young, which is kind of dark. Yeah. But the story isn't, I mean, it's not all about that. It's like,
but it gives him his context.
But it gives him his character. It's his context for what he's struggling with and being out in the woods with, and kind of the woods is our place where he can kind of escape that whole thing. And instead, he ends up kind of, rediscovering how to re-enter society. That's
really, it sounds like there again that you were able to use the wilderness as a perfect foil or way to draw out the darkness from inside him. So so A Sharp Solitude, this one's done really well for you. I mean, several of your books have been up for some really big awards, so don't be modest. Tell us about these, because we're interested.
Okay.
I want this.
So here we are at BoucherCon, right?
Yeah.
And so A Sharp Solitude was a finalist, a nominee for the Barry Award, which is one of 5 books, and it's quite an honor to be a finalist because there's a lot of books. As you know, being at this conference, there's a lot of books.
There's a lot of books.
And there's a lot of books in the crime fiction world in general in the genre. So I was really honored to be a finalist for that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You should be. That's wonderful.
So I've won the Pinkley Prize, which is a wonderful organization from the Women's National Book Association, and I've won the High Plains Book Award, which is a really great honor as well, because that involves not just mysteries but all genres of books, and it's like all the High Plains states, which I don't think I can name them all off because there's a lot of them, but includes Wyoming and Montana and Colorado and I think even Nebraska and some of the provinces in Canada is also involved in the High Plains. And so it's actually a pretty big area that you're competing against a lot of authors, and so I've won that my book Mortal Fall won that award, and I've won the Silver Falchion Award for my book The Wild Inside, which is was my first book, and it's a really fun book. Yeah.
And so of the books, and there are how many in the series so far? 4?
There are 4 books so far in the series, and I'm hesitant to even call it a series because they're all standalones. They all have their own character that plays through the entire character arc with that character. But what I do is I pluck side characters and bring them forth, kind of like a number of authors have done it. But the first one on my mind is Town of French, who's the Dublin Murder Mystery series, where she plucks a side character and brings it forward, and then plucks another side character and brings that one forward in the next book. And so that's what I've done, but they each stand alone, so you don't have to read them in order.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you can dive in anywhere, which is super cool.
Yeah.
And of them, is there one you gravitate toward the most and you think, that one has my heart, that one is my favorite child? Or
no,
are they
really
all,
can't.
They all are equally precious.
They're all equally precious.
like our children are.
Yeah, they're all pretty special to me.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one's always, of course, like that first book. You spend a lot of time with it because it's the thing that you're trying to break into the market with.
Right.
And so that, I think that the first book, not just for me, but for a lot of authors, is very special because it's the book that gets you through the pearly gates of, for me, New York publishing, because I'm a traditionally published author with one of the big five, and so to get into that is a really tough thing.
Yeah,
so
it is.
If that book can do that for you, that's your baby,
right?
And then that first book, a lot of people always want to start in the beginning. So you're talking about that first book a lot.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's more special. It's special in that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
Right.
Because honestly, your writing probably improves as
exactly.
you go along as a writer, right?
Right.
Little bit.
You evolve. You learn, and you connect with your readers, and you connect with the characters, as you're saying, and spinning them off, and it can't help but develop you too as your characters develop.
Yeah.
But it's also usually the one you've spent the most time on as well, because the pace picks up once you're under contract.
Right.
And you've got these delivery dates. But the first one, you get to snuggle up with it for a while,
you know? Yeah, you do.
Sometimes years.
Sometimes years. Sometimes that's the way that goes,
Yeah, and sometimes you really hate it by the time you're done, but it's still special. And so now, did you always picture yourself, prepare yourself to be a novelist? Or was this something that came as a choice somewhere along the way to deviate path from something you were doing before? Is this?
So it's kind of, Steven Spielberg has this quote about your dreams. I'll butcher the quote. I won't get it exactly right, but it's something about that your dreams don't shout at you, they whisper to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I can say that the whisper has always been there, at least since, I want to say high school-ish, or a little after high school, early days of college maybe. I've had this whisper that I've wanted to be a novelist, which at the time felt like a kind of a crazy notion. Like, why do you have to, it was this little tiny whisper that I just kind of ignored. Like, well, who am I to think I could be a novelist? And like, I don't know how to write. Like, why am I not like that? Why do I think I want this? And so it's an odd thing to have this calling to something, and I think you identify it the most when you read other great books that you love, and that's when you really go, I want to do that, when you have that strong pull toward something, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it kind of goes, if you don't acknowledge that whisper early on, it can become a shout later on in life.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened to me, is that I got to the point where I did have to make a choice. Like, okay, now I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go for it. Because it's now a shout that I should do this instead of just like this thing I could maybe dabble with when I was younger.
Right. Well, and it's, if it's been there and you know that it's going to happen eventually, you have to give in. But then, I don't know about you, but that whisper that becomes the shout, then it's something that won't ever let go of you again. I try to take breaks. Like, I'll say, look, I'm gonna take a month off.
I did too. Yeah. I took like a 10-year break.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is not for me. Who do I think I am?
Yeah.
Trying to, get an agent and do all this stuff, when I don't even know what I'm doing, and it's a self-confidence. It's an act of self-confidence.
You feel like a
to
pretender.
put yourself out there like that. You feel like a fraud, and so, and I had gone through a divorce, and I was a single mom, and so I thought, I'm gonna go into. I went into survival mode. It's like, I'm gonna put this writing thing aside. This just isn't for me. I gotta make some money and do something else.
Right. This isn't responsible. This is
And so I did for over 10 years, and I think that's when the whisper went to a shout, because I was shoving it away for over a decade.
You're killing your
so
soul
that's
slowly.
when I came back to it, and when I came back to it very deliberately. Like, okay, I'm going to write what I love to read, which is crime fiction, and because when I dabbled in it earlier, I was like just trying to write, some slice of life thing that, in my mind back then, it was the Oprah Book Club was so big, and it was like, oh, it'll be an Oprah Book Club, or in my dreams, and so when I came back to it, it was so much more honed and different. Like, I'm going to write what I really love to read, which is suspense.
It's interesting that you mention that, and I wonder if you ever feel pressure because you write beautifully. I mean, this is why her books win awards. You write beautifully and are able also to carry plot. That do you ever feel a pressure to move into a more literary space? Because this is, you mentioned being drawn to write what you love. There's a little bit of pressure in the literary community that genre fiction is not quite as highbrow, as other writing. Yeah. But some of it is so beautiful.
A little bit of that, but it's totally unnecessary because there's so much crime fiction, that's just, so literary on its own that I fail to see that distinction between a really well done literary or suspense novel that happens to be really well written and a novel that maybe doesn't deal with crimes but is still suspenseful, because any book you want suspense, you want to keep what's going to happen to this character, whether it's crime related or not. You want to be deeply invested and keep those pages turning, whether it's a Pulitzer kind of prize novel that really keeps you interested and is really well done and really beautifully written, or
there happens to be dead bodies.
Like one of my favorite books is Mystic River, and I find that highly literary.
Right.
I mean,
I agree with you. And being at a conference like this, it really drives that home again. You're sitting down, and what I've been doing is I've been taking snippets of a lot of books I haven't had time to read and just running out and I'm just going to read a chapter before I go listen to this person talk on a panel.
Right.
And I'm just floored over and over again by how powerful, how beautiful, how gritty, and how evocative these books are. And it's just being in a place like this makes you proud to sit down with a Christine Carbo and to say, I love writing in this space. I love reading this stuff. I love writing it, and I can't wait to read yours too. So
thank you
for writing it. Thank you for sitting down and making it possible for us to talk about it.
Yeah,
and you guys, if they want to learn more about you, is the website just ChristineCarbo.com?
ChristineCarbo.com. Like I said, my books are The Wild Inside, Mortal Fall, The Weight of Night, A Sharp Solitude, and
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Well, so join me in picking up a copy of those and checking them out. And also remember to go back out to the website, PamelaFaganHutchins.com, to the Wine Women in Writing page, where you can see the books for the upcoming shows. And maybe that's what you did for this one. And by when it aired, you'd already read oh God, now I'm going to blank out. This is what happens when you're drinking at a conference and then try to do interviews the next day. But the Sharp Solitude, it came back to me. So maybe you've already read the Sharp Solitude by the time this airs. But also look for the other authors that I have upcoming on the schedule, and be sure to check those books out as well. This is the point in the show where I have to be really boring and say this has been a solely owned and copyrighted production of Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and Wine Women and Writing is the joint brainchild of my producer Pam Stack and me, and I can't thank her enough for giving us the opportunity to sit down author to author, have chats, and hopefully help you find your next wonderful author to follow in your next great read. So you guys go out and have a great week, and again, thanks. It was fun. Bye guys.